Shalom. I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honors to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Waha, Rakakwadash, Barakathum to the sincere Akim, teaching his word in sincerity and in truth, and double honors to the apostles and the elders of great millstone who rule well, leading the elect of the nation of Israel to the kingdom of heaven through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. Now I entitled this lesson, Death Before Dishonor, as you can see. Because, in this faith, you got to count the cost. When I say count the cost, you got to be able to weigh all avenues within this truth, and the scriptures say that not every man shall taste of death, but the prophecy is written that some of us that's within this faith, of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai's elect is going to have to lay their life down through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, for prophecy to be fulfilled, So we have to know and prepare our mind and spirit that just in case it comes to that situation, to take the death, like the old saying goes, hope for the best and prepare for the worst, man. We prepare ourselves by constantly meditating upon the scriptures. For majority of the scriptures is mournings, lamentations, and woe. So when you're involved in the scriptures, your mind is going to be prepared for such, which is what? Lamentations, mournings, and woe. Because that's what Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai got coming, to this society. Is mournings, lamentations, and woe. Bad times, evil times. Before things can get better for the kingdom of heaven, things got to get a whole lot worse. We're going to see things that we've never seen. We're going to see things that we've never read about. Because the Lord is bringing a time that was never seen, known to man. So what? We have to prepare ourselves through the Spirit. Revelations 20:4 tells us that there's going to be some men beheaded, for the witness and the testimony of Yahweh Shai. So when you constantly play these scriptures within our head, it prepares us for it, just in case that may be our lot. Now this is a series now that I'm doing, through the Spirit. It's the first one I'm doing. I have two more, on deck that I want to get into. And as I go on and some other accounts that may hit me, I'm going to give it to y'all, But there's two scriptures I want to read before I get into each account that I do, Because it's imperative that we keep this in mind. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 10. It says, "Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life." And that's written in red, man. Yahweh Shai spoke these words himself. He said, "Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer." What are we going to suffer? We're going to suffer the lack of food and water. The Lord told us not to fear that. Why? Because he's going to provide for us. Because we're doing his service. When you read, I believe, was that Isaiah 65? The Lord said that we're going to eat and we're going to drink. Fear not being put into the concentration camps. That's one of the things that we're going to have to suffer. Fear not being separated from your family. The scripture spoke upon us, how a man's foes shall be those of their own household. So we're not supposed to fear these things, man. The scriptures also tell us, make not haste in time of trouble, and be patient when thou art changed to a lower state. So what? The Lord is going to bring a whole lot of uncomfortability to his men and those of the 2/3 in the world. But we have to stand solid you know, remain steadfast in his faith and not buckle, you know. So it says, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil. Who's the devil? The so-called white man. Spiritual demon Satan ain't going to just come out the spiritual realm and physically throw you into the prison. It's talking about Esau, the so-called white man. The devil shall cast some of you into prison. So that's going to be some men's lot. You know, now we don't know if that lot is going to fall upon us. We just have to be ready and prepared for it, spiritually and mentally, because that's where the battle is, right? It says, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days, meaning what? You know, we're going to suffer, you know, for a particular amount of time. It says tribulation, 10 days. We're going to suffer for an amount of time. And it says, be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. So even if it comes to death, the Lord said he's going to give us a crown of life, which is what? Honor. You know, so that's why, you know, I entitled this lesson, Death Before Dishonor. You know, we have to take the death that's given to us before we bow down and take that chip, because that's the new form of temptation. You know, when you read the different accounts, you know, there was a different form of temptation in which our people had to go through and overcome and prevail. This time around, it's the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip. You know, here it is. If you don't know that's the big temptation, how you know not to accept it? That's why we know a lot of guys have sold out, you know, because they're not teaching 100% truth. You know, they got something called a 501c3 charter, which is a tax exemption. You know, pretty much all the proceeds and the money goes to them, and they don't have to pay any taxes to the government. And we know one thing the government is hell bound on is collecting taxes. You know, so that's a net that the so-called white man Esau is casting upon our people to silence them, you know, and not give you the truth. Like the scriptures say, a gift blinds the eyes of the wise so that they cannot reprove. You know, that 501c3 charter is all a part of that gift, man. You know, so we're not supposed to succumb to the wiles of the devil, man, because he is going to come with his trickeries, you know, to get us to bow down to that chip in that day. You know, it's like, yeah. See something. Now, I'm on a blue letter, and I pretty much wanted to look into tribulation, you know, and the definition of that word tribulation.
Strong's G 2347. Thlipsis. Thlipsis.
Thlipsis. In fact, let me get into the Strong's. It says the definition. It says pressure, anguish, burden, persecution, tribulation, trouble. You know, so we're going to be pressured in that day. You know, we're going to be pressured to what? Take that chip. You know, they may have our head in a guillotine saying like, look, if you don't take this chip, if you don't take this mark of the beast, your head is getting chopped smooth off. Well, we're supposed to tell this devil through the spirit, fuck you. You're going into slavery, and let the Lord's will be done. You know, the Lord can raise us with spiritual power in that time if we have faith. Stop the button from being pushed, or whatever, however they, you know, cause the guillotine to come down and chop your head off. You know, it may stop midway. You know, the blade may just stop on your neck. You know, the Lord bless you with spiritual power, and you wreak shop on them devils, man, up in that concentration camp. You never know how the chips may fall, man. This is the Lord's movie, and the Lord is all about providing the element of surprise, man, and taking these devils out, you know, in their comfortability to where they feel like they have an immense amount of stout, man, you know. But the next scripture I want to get into is 1 Maccabees chapter 2, verse 51. It says, call to remembrance what acts our fathers did in their time. So shall ye receive great honor and an everlasting name. So we got to call to remembrance, the acts of our forefathers, man. And the acts that they did in their time, so that we may receive honor and an everlasting name. When you watch that movie Troy, he didn't really care about the present time. He wanted to fight so that his name could live on forever, despite how the chips may fall. We know that movie, was a little dramatized, but it holds a lot of merits within that movie. So that's why the scriptures also speak upon. In fact, let me get it. I don't want to misquote it. I do not want to misquote it. Romans chapter 15 verse 4 says, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. So the acts of our fathers, they went through what they had to go through, and it was written because they was going to come back and go through it again. And we are our forefathers coming back. We are our forefathers coming back. So that's why these words were written, as an exhortation, as a warning, and as a faith builder and a strengthening. Because, just like our oppressors, they going to come back doing the same old two-step. We're going to come back going through the same tribulation, just a different vice being brought to us, So the first particular account that I want to get into as far as this series is Eleazar, during the time of the Maccabees, and he showed forth, a great form of integrity, man, and patience, and this account has always resonated with me, since the very first time I heard of it, and came across it. This is 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 18. I'm going to start at verse 17. It says, but let this that we have spoken be for a warning unto us, and now will we come to the declaring of the matter in few words. Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, and an aged man, meaning what? He had a position, a high-ranking position. And one thing about these devils, they like to go for the top. They like to go for the individual in which a lot of people is following. Because once they know they can control that individual, who the masses is following, or who the majority of the people is following, they can control their followers, So it says, Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man, meaning he was up to age, and of a well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh. So he was pressured. He was in a position of anguish to eat swine's flesh. That was the big temptation at that time. Because at that time, Antiochus, was putting the law and decree out there that Israel should put away their laws and eat swine's flesh. And eating swine's flesh went against the law, statutes, and commandments. Now these niggas eat this swine's flesh as if it's a delicacy, man. Showing you how our people been broken down and conditioned. And they don't choose to read the scriptures. And if they do, they negate it, by changing it and listen to their pork chop eating pastor, you know what I'm saying, and thinking that Yahweh Shai, who they ignorantly know is Jesus Christ, died for them to eat swine's flesh. That's why the Lord's going to kill a lot of you niggas, man. It says, was constrained to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh. 19. But he, choosing rather to die gloriously than to live stained with such an abomination, spit it forth and came of his own according to the torment. So he had that mentality of death before dishonor. Here it is. He put in all this work. He gained all this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. He was a likable guy, in the house of Israel. So he chose rather to die gloriously. You know what I'm saying? He chose rather to die gloriously because, man, let's look up that word glorious right quick. And this is the attitude we gotta have. You know, everybody like a good story to tell. You know, when you go through hardships, you go through tribulation, you know, it's nothing better than coming out on the other side, you know, and be able to reflect upon it and have a story to tell. In the kingdom of heaven, we're gonna have mad stories to tell, wild stories to tell, man, of the bullshit that we went through, man. Lord willing, we endure. Right? Now let's see, glorious. This is a Google search definition. It says having glorious, having worthy of, or bringing fame or admiration. You know, synonyms: illustrious, celebrated, famous, distinguished, honored. You know, second definition: having a striking beauty or splendor that evokes feelings of a delighted admiration. You know, so what, in the kingdom of heaven, the elect is going to have that glow, man. You know, in which the people is going to admire us. You know, but we have to go through the harsh realities and the tribulations on this side in order for us to obtain that in the kingdom of heaven. You know, so everybody they're gonna know who we are. You know what I'm saying? In the kingdom of heaven, they're gonna know what we've been through, because all of that is gonna be written in the books, man. You know, hell, each prophet may just have their own book. You know, you never know how the Lord may have it this time. You know. So it says, but he choosing rather to die gloriously than to live stained. You know, so we got to liken the swine's flesh at this particular moment as the RFID chip, which is the mark of the beast. We got to choose rather to die gloriously than to take that chip, man, because that's what's coming. Spit it forth and came of his own accord to the torment. Verse 20, as it behooved them to come that are resolute to stand out against such things as are not lawful, for love of life to be tasted. But they that had the charge of that wicked feast, for the old acquaintance they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh of his own provision, such as was lawful for him to use, and make as if he did eat of the flesh taken from the sacrifice commanded by the king. And you see this devil? You see this devil being a devil, being slick, you know, being a serpent that he is. You know, here it is. Since Eleazar, you know, denied wanting to eat swine's flesh, this devil came, okay, you can have, for an example, chicken is lawful, you know, lamb is lawful, beef is lawful, right? So he could have chose to eat one of those meats, the lawful meats, whether it be lamb, chicken, or beef, but telling his own people or those who followed him that it was swine's flesh so they can eat it, you know? The sinner will still stand because you causing other people to go off, you know, and that show forth great integrity. But the but 2/3 of our people today, they would have taken that deal, man. They take the deal now because they sell out to this devil, you know. So when you see these people of renown, you know, and you got, you know, they're telling them inspirational things, they're doing nothing but lying to them. The devil. They're nothing but puppets on a string, you know. And Esau, the elites of Edom, you know, they're the puppet master. They're pulling the strings, telling them what to say. So what? The masses, which are the real the puppets, you know, following what that middleman is saying and what's being told to say by Esau, the so-called white man, which is the elites, you know. So it says. Verse 22, it says that in so doing he might be delivered from death, and for the old friendship with them find favor, you know. So what? He could have not been put to death if he would have eaten the choice of meat that he wanted to, but just telling the people that it was swine's flesh, and he could have been cool with the king. You know what I'm saying? He could have been rubbing elbows with the king. Let's see what he does. Verse 23, but he began to consider discreetly. And as, hey, let's look up that word discreetly, you know, because certain words just pop out at you when you read the scriptures, you know. I know what it means, but let's just get into it. Discreetly, Google search, it says in a careful and prudent manner. That's counting the cost, man. In a careful and prudent manner, a wise manner, you know. Especially in order to keep something confidential or to avoid embarrassment. You know, to avoid embarrassment. So he considered discreetly with the decision he was going to make. It says, but he began to consider discreetly, and as became his age, and the excellency of his ancient years, and the honor of his great. Because look, man, it's nothing embarrassing, you know. Then here it is, you out there on the highways and byways talking cash shit, telling the white man he's the devil, he's going into slavery, you know, you saying you're not going to take the chip, blah, 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 you know, and that time comes and you bow down to the chip. What was all that shit you was what was all that, shit you was talking, you know, based upon the oppressor, and you find yourself kneeling to the chip. So that's why we look, the Lord is going to hold us accountable for the things that we say, man. And that's why you got to pray to the Lord to not be a hypocrite within this thing and to remain humble, because it's going to take the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua to be upon us to deny the chip, Revelations 3 and 10. Let me read that right fast since I'm here. It says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. Like Apostle Bar did the lesson, I could just tell by the title that's what he was getting into. You know what I'm saying? We got to hold the Lord according to his words. We got to hold the Lord according to his words. Now, here it is. When it comes to that time, and you tell the Lord, look, I've been out there on the highways and byways. I've been diligent. I gave it all I got. You said, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, we kept the word of your patience. You know what I'm saying? We rehearsed the righteous acts to the best of our ability. Keep me from this hour of temptation. You know what I'm saying? Put the spirit upon me to endure this. You know what I'm saying? You got to use the Lord's words against them. And it's beautiful that the apostle did that lesson, man. Because that's just another height and another level of a perspective to add to your arsenal, and building up your faith and building up your relationship with Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, right? So, reading on, it says, verse 23, verse 23, it says, but he began to consider discreetly, and as became his age, and the excellency of his ancient years, and the honor of his great head, whereunto he was come, and his most honest education from a child, or rather the holy law made and given by Yahweh. Therefore he answered accordingly, and willed them straight ways to send him to the grave. So what? He counted the cost. He started to reflect on, the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that he received as a child. He looked at himself and pictured himself like, man, I've been brought up in the law since I was a child. Now I have gray hairs. Now people, respect. They believe on me. Certain things was probably, strapulating, just going through his head. And the Lord increased him at his last end. It's like, man, look, send me to the grave, man. I'm not about to bow down to you. Send me to the grave. That's a man of integrity, man. That's a man of patience. That's a man of great faith. Pretty much staring into the eye of your oppressor, your enemy, the devil, Esau, and tell him, like, look, send me to the grave. This is a case, an example of him laying his life down. And that's another thing, man. Beginning with Yahweh, these devils don't take our lives, man. We lay it down. Because prophecy has to be fulfilled. We know this thing is bigger than us. So prophecy has to be fulfilled. He could have preserved his life by, eating lawful flesh, but telling the people it was swine's flesh. He could have preserved his life, but what, he laid it down, man. And that's the spirit we need to have in these days, right? But here it is. If you wilding out, having a good time, drinking and, fornicating and everything's all good, you going to the house of feasting, and totally negating the balance of things, you're not going to be in this spirit, or when this time comes, it's going to shell shock you to where you're going to kneel, It says, verse 24, it says, for it becometh not our age, said he, in any wise to dissemble, whereby many young persons might think that Eleazar, being 4 years old and 10, so he was 90 years old. Yeah, so he was 90 years old, right? and we're now going to a strange religion. So it wouldn't have made sense. Here it is, you've been brought up in this truth all this time, and us in this present day, we've been laboring for all this time. It doesn't make sense for us to go back. We are not of them that draw back into perdition, right? It says, and so they through mind hypocrisy, that's right, that's why I said you don't want to be a hypocrite in this thing. You know, telling this devil, you're going to slavery, I'm not taking the chip. You know, really condemning his whole society, but at the end of the day, you fuck around and take the chip. You don't wanna, you don't wanna, you don't want that to be a lot. You know what I'm saying? Though it's not our choice, but that's why you gotta remain humble. You know what I'm saying? And put these perspectives in your mind to where you don't want to be a hypocrite. So now you gotta live by what you say. We gotta live by what we say. You know what I'm saying? It says, and so they through mind hypocrisy and desire to live a little time and a moment longer should be deceived by me, and I get a stain to my own age and make it abominable. Because that's all you're doing. You're only sparing your life for a little bit of more time. Just a little while longer. You know what I'm saying? But when we know if you take that shit, the missiles gonna clean your clock. The missiles is gonna clean your clock, man. Wipe your time out. You know? You're going to be melted. And once you read Zechariah 14 and 12, you don't want to experience that type of heat. Zechariah 14 and 12 gets to it, man. You know? You don't want to feel that type of heat. So it would behoove you to just let prophecy be fulfilled, man. And take the death. Right? It says, let me read that verse 25 again. And so they through mind hypocrisy and desire to live a little time and a moment longer should be deceived by me, and I get a stain to my old age and make it abominable. So he led by example. You know, so if it came time for those that were under him to take the death, they can look at Eleazar for an example and just take the death and not eat the swine's flesh. You know? Because eating that swine's flesh, though they would have been preserved, but they would have died after that. You know what I'm saying? So he led by an example. You know, the things of aforetime were written for our learning. You know, it says verse 26, it says, for though for the present time I should be delivered from the punishment of men, yet should I not escape the hand of the Almighty, neither alive nor dead, man. Because the what? The Heavenly Father controlled the body and soul in hell, man. You know what I'm saying? That's a lesson in itself. You know, though you deliver from the punishment of men, yet should you not escape the hand of the Almighty, man. That's a lesson in itself, man. That's powerful. You know, that's why we ought to obey God rather than men. You know, wherefore now, manfully changing this life, I will show myself such an one as mine age requireth, and leave a notable example to such as be young to die willingly and courageously. So what? He's laid his life down. You know, say, and he will leave a notable example. He's an example to follow. To such as be young to die willingly and courageously for the honorable and holy laws. So we dying for a purpose, man. We got a lot of Jake that died without a purpose. They died because of a blue flag or a red flag or a yellow flag, or because somebody stepped on their sneakers, or because somebody took over their corner. You know what I'm saying? They dying for all the wrong reasons, man. But we dying to receive an incorruptible crown. We dying for the holy laws. We dying for Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. We are in debt, man. You know? This is the only way we could pay the Lord back, and it's still not enough. It says, and when he had said these words, immediately he went to the torment. They that led him, changing the good will, they bear him a little before into hatred. And that shows you how quick these devils switch, man. The flicker of a light switch, these devils are quick to switch. Only they got it in the back of their mind, like, look, I'm gonna kill your ass, but they keep it in the front of the mind to see if you could be swayed, you know. And it hurts their pride and ego when you don't succumb to their proposition, so to speak. You know, it burns them up. It says It says, verse 29 again, it says, they that led him changing the good will, they bear him a little before into hatred, because the foresaid speeches proceeded, as they thought, from a desperate mind. You know, it was hoodwinked, man. It says, but when he was ready to die with stripes, he groaned and said, it is manifest unto the Lord that hath the holy knowledge, that whereas I might have been delivered from death, I now endure sore pains in my body by being beaten, but in soul am well content to suffer these things, because I fear him. And that's the mentality to have, man. Though we're going to feel that pain within our bodies, if that be our lot for us to go through it, in soul and spirit, we are content, because we fear Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. The beatings, that's temporary. The pain in your body, that's temporary. But you're going to be content because the soul live forever. You know, and the Lord is going to bless you, man. The Lord is going to reward us. You know. And in verse 31, and thus this man died, leaving his death for an example of a noble courage and a memorial virtue, not only to young men, but unto all his nation. This is why this devil wanted to take away and discredit the Apocrypha, man. Man, look, this book is well needed, man. It's necessary. It's a big piece to the puzzle that we ought to, you know, constantly meditate upon, man. You know, so, you know, this was the first edition, you know, the first part of Death Before Dishonor, you know, considering the acts of our forefathers, you know, and yeah, we got to keep this in mind, man. We got to keep this in mind. You know, that's one of the accounts that stand out most to me, you know, within the scriptures, period. You know what I'm saying? Because Eleazar showed forth great integrity, you know what I'm saying? And a man of his old age, you know, he laid his life down, you know, for a greater cause, you know. So if that be our lot and the chips fall upon us based upon that, we got to lay down our life for the greater cause, man, for prophecy to be fulfilled. Only a selfish individual will preserve his life. And when you read the scriptures, it teaches us not to be selfish, you know. So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honors to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Waharakah Kwadash, Barakathum to the sincere Akim out there teaching his word in sincerity and in truth, and double honor to the apostles and the elders, the great millstone who rule well, leading the elect of the nation of Israel to the kingdom of heaven, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Shalom.